Good afternoon and welcome to our next session for Aspect. Robin, while we have this screen up on here, which is for your micro-credentials, so if you're attending the whole suite of these webinars, you can also achieve some micro-credentials. Need to get my teeth in gear. So please do scan that QR code and Robin will give us a little bit of background as to what we're doing and why we're here and the sequence we've delivered so far.
Yeah, so super quick. Hi, everybody. Welcome, Nick, as well. As Lucy said, this is the second in the series. For those of you who are new and this is your first one attending, Aspect is a consortium of university members. We are all interested in sort of progressing areas of the shape disciplines, social sciences, arts, humanities, and particularly looking for impact out of projects, out of research, and also commercialization. So how do we sustain stuff? How do we turn it into kind of viable products or services to make sure that the impact has far-reaching sort of value? So with this particular series as well, we recognize that people are under a lot of time and resource kind of constraints. So very much what we're interested in is how do we kind of build sort of workflows? How do we kind of move things forwards in a way that we can automate and ultimately move our projects on? And I think, as Lucy said, if you want to scan this, if you want to kind of get the micro credentials, we'll also put it in the chat. And this is something we're working on. Lucy and I have been doing for a little while. So kind of over to you, Lucy, to kind of see what else is on the schedule.
Yes, this is our fourth iteration of toolkits as it started out, and we've covered things like Canva, webinars, podcasting, videos, and it's evolved. I remember when we first started running these, AI wasn't even mentioned. It was the thing that was kind of bubbling on the edges of our consciousness, and it's slowly crept in, and we've gone from being a little bit daunted by it, maybe a little bit reluctant to use it, to being curious, but now and then using it the right way, to how it's evolved. So this series, as you already know, you hopefully seen all of this. We had a good foundation setting with Jonas last week. Nick's going to help us with how we start building those stacks and putting the pieces together. We're building prototypes with Tim, websites with Joyanne, demonstrating the impact. So there's an evolution here. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Please come to all that you can. If there's any that you miss, you can't make, or you want to watch the previous series, they're all on our YouTube channel, which I'll also be sharing in the chat. Now, this is a Zoom webinar, and my role really is as host and wing person for Nick. Please put your questions in the chat and we'll get to them and when we can. This is what's great about doing it as a webinar, is we can ask them in real time. So do ask your questions as they come up, and we'll answer them as is relevant. If we start talking about the practical applications of AI within your institution, or the ethics, or what tools you're allowed to use, that's something we will park outside of these webinars, because we aren't representing an institution. I work at University of Bath, Robin is the University of Bristol, but actually we're not looking at that area. So if that's a question you have, we recommend you take that back into your institution to ask around what you can use, what you've already got, and what best practice would be regarding your own research or your project. And Nick, thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to move you over to be host, and I wanted to get this session in because you see, when we first started off, we were kind of having a play in Copilot or Chat or Claude or the other tools we use. And I know I'm now using it really differently, and all the tools have different strengths. So let's have a rummage around that concept. Hopefully inspire some people to use some different tools.
Yeah, exactly. Wonderful. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Great to see so much interest in this. I'm going to jump into some slides in just a moment, very few slides, and then we're going to get very, very practical. We're going to start sort of trying to build things together. Just super quickly on my background, I started out in academia, was a researcher in business ethics, so sort of familiar with the world that you're coming from. Then moved into international development, and then joined the organization I'm currently at, which is called Better Society Capital. We invest to try and do good things in the world. It's probably the one sentence version of that. And I used to be in the investment team, and we made the decision that we were going to go on this kind of digital transformation journey, and that we wanted somebody to lead, in particular, the AI work as part of that digital transformation that understood the business. So they decided that was going to be me. So I do not have a sort of deep technical background in AI things, but I'm very curious and spend a lot of weekends and evenings playing with things and seeing how to make stuff and maybe break some stuff.
We talked
as well.
about AI rabbit holes last time. It's one of those things is when you start playing.
Yeah. But it's incredible what these tools can do. So anyway, having just said that very brief intro, let me jump to the slides, which we'll do very quickly. And we'll get practical as fast as we can. Great. Hopefully everyone can see that. So just to say as well, yeah, great, thank you. Just to say as well, I planned a wonderful session over the weekend, and then Lucy and I were chatting about it, was it yesterday, I think? And the intention was to use a tool that is free, that is really great for building these sort of end-to-end workflows. And it turns out that they removed their free tier. So we have rejigged the session plan. We are kind of improvising a little bit, but hopefully this gives you a really detailed insight into what it actually takes to make some of these things work. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this, how to build an AI-powered workflow end-to-end. So that's really the goal here. A few steps involved in that. So one, it's always helpful to have a really kind of clear mapping or framing of what we're trying to do with the AI thing. As Lucy said, you can often kind of get caught into rabbit holes and go places that you shouldn't be going. So really staying focused on the problem. Setting up Claude as a building partner. Now, Claude is one of these chatbots that's made by a company called Anthropic. They are actually, the senior people actually left OpenAI, which makes ChatGPT, to set up Claude as a competitor. So it's a bit newer than OpenAI and ChatGPT, but it's actually now overtaken them in terms of revenue, which is kind of a huge achievement because no one thought that was going to be possible. In particular, Claude or Anthropic rather, they are designing Claude for enterprise use, whereas ChatGPT is focusing a bit more on sort of consumers. And so more and more enterprises are switching from typically Copilot, which is the sort of Microsoft, to Claude. We've just made that switch. So I'm going to be showing you stuff in Claude because that's what I have access to, but also just good for you to be aware of the different tools and the different features. Pretty much everything that we're going to talk about can be done in ChatGPT, can be done in Copilot and Gemini if those are the tools that you're using. It just might look a little bit different. You might have to kind of set it up a slightly different way, but we can also talk about that if helpful. So yes, setting up Claude as a building partner, I would just recommend that whenever you sort of set out to try and do something, you can use AI to help you to do AI things. And so we'll get into what that looks like in a bit as well. Also, connecting tools to Claude. So when we're thinking about this kind of end-to-end workflows, we might need different tools. And so how do we connect those to Claude? And how do we interact with them from a chatbot like Claude? And hopefully we are going to run into some live challenges as we do this. And so we will also then think about how we can troubleshoot when we come up across these challenges. So I'm doing a bunch of training for our organization, around 120 people. And this is, I think, the most important skill that we try to give people in these training sessions, because if you can figure out how to get over a challenge that you're faced, that just means that you can do a lot more with AI, you can move much faster and so on. So that is a sort of core meta skill that hopefully we can unpack a little bit today. Just a couple sort of framing points. So my goal is to try and stretch what we think is possible with these tools. So we're going to be doing things that maybe you haven't done before. I'm going to sort of go as slow as possible. Do feel free to put in the chat anything that is confusing or we want clarity on also, and so on. But that's sort of my goal here. So if we're feeling a little bit uncomfortable, if we're feeling like, oh, these are new things, that's absolutely the intention, and that's how we sort of all develop our capability.
That's quite exciting. That's what I'm here for.
All right, that's our goal, to make Lucy uncomfortable. Here we go. That's what we're aiming for. I just say this is a completely safe space, right? So there are no dumb questions. Part of me sharing that I didn't come from a technical background means all the sort of quote unquote dumb questions, I've already asked them to our technical team. So we've all sort of been there, and please feel free to ask literally anything. That's
definitely my role, because I don't want to make any assumptions, because you've gone down the rabbit hole, so we don't have to. So I'm quite looking forward to having a go as well.
Yeah. So literally any and all questions are very much welcome. Okay, let's get into the sort of the sort of meat of it. So I think when we all kind of pick up these AI tools, this is sort of how we use them. So I've got two colors here. The sort of dark blue is human-driven tasks, and the sort of lighted teal blue is the tasks that we give to AI. So we start with that. That's how we all worked, I don't know, 5 years ago. There was something that we were trying to achieve, and there were different tasks in that process that we had to do in order to get to some sort of output or outcome or whatever. And then we've got these now tools that kind of live next to us where we work, and how we tend to interact with them is that we will delegate a task or two to the AI. So, if we're trying to do research for, let's say, a paper, we might have a particular area that we want it to go and explore. So we'll say, hey, please do a literature review on this area or whatever. It will go and do some of that stuff. It will return back some content, and we will then, read that, maybe copy paste some of it and edit it, and all the sort of good things we're meant to do when we lift from LLMs and so on. Sorry, I should say LLMs, large language models. It's sort of the technical term for some of these chatbots. So yeah, it's a sort of very discrete, I'm going to do this specific bit of this task I'm going to give to AI. It's going to give it back to me. I'm going to do something with it, and then we're going to move forward in the workflow. I suppose what we're aiming for today is to try and get AI to do the vast majority of the workflow, if not all of the workflow. And that means that these things can happen maybe automatically without us looking at them, or we can be running lots more things in parallel because we're not in control of lots of those different things at the same time, which can get a bit overwhelming and so on. So it just unlocks a lot more potential in these tools. Now, there's loads of different ways that you can achieve this broad goal. I'm going to demo one of them in quite a bit of detail, and we'll sort of walk through it together. I might, if we have time at the end, show you the thing that I wanted to show you that is unfortunately now no longer free, but just to give you a sense of how powerful some of these tools can be. I think the starter package is $25 a month or something like that. So not kind of prohibitively expensive, but yeah, you do have to kind of get a paid account. Awesome. Now, in thinking about this, there are basically two reasons why it's hard to get kind of AI to do an entire workflow. So the first one is that different bits of the workflow might need different tools for us to sort of do them in that way. And we, like currently, it's not intuitive or obvious how you can get something, let's say, from an LLM, one of these chatbots. If you were trying to create content to go on LinkedIn, which is the example we're going to use in just a moment, the only way that we could get it from, let's say, Claude or Copilot or whatever into LinkedIn, it's to copy paste it manually ourselves and press post and so on. So is there a way that we can get these tools to talk to different other tools in order to streamline this process? That's kind of the first thing. The second thing is we often don't trust it, right, to do everything because we need to check stuff as it goes along the way, particularly where there are kind of key decision points. So what I call like design choices in the thing that we're trying to do. You don't want AI to sort of blindly do those because we often don't trust it. So how can we get it to give us higher quality of things such that we can now trust it to kind of do this end-to-end workflow thing? That's going to be the second kind of key question that we look at. So that's broadly what we're going to try and do in the next hour or so, is like, how can we solve both these challenges? Cool. I am going to stop sharing. What I thought we'd do here is a quick poll just of how people use AI and things. Lucy, you're going to have to help me here because I am not Zoom native. We use Teams. So there we go. Okay, yeah. Oh, you are on mute, so I can't quite hear you, but you've taken control, so I'm assuming.
That's all right. Let me go into the polls. There we go. Let's launch this one.
Thank you. So yeah, just to get a sense of who we have in the room, a few questions on AI usage. So do you think AI is now fundamental to your roles? And I guess fundamental, we're basically saying it would be very difficult to do your role without AI now, or to sort of do it at the level that you want to do it without AI.
We are seeing, at the moment, it's about 50-50. So let's see how this ends.
Interesting. Do we get to sort of see the results at the end?
We do. I'm just
Okay.
going to give everyone just another couple of seconds to go yes or no.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a few of these for different audiences, and it's so interesting to see.
It's really interesting data as well. I mean, as I said last week, we said, how do we all feel about AI? And there was every element. There's a healthy cynicism. Just what you were saying about AI can't do all the work. We absolutely agree with that. All right, let's share the results.
Oh, wow. Okay. More even than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, just over 40% saying that this is now fundamental to their roles. And agree, all of our team that sort of does research internally for our fund. We had to turn some features off because they sort of released some new things and we weren't kind of sure how they interacted with the rest of our IT estate and so on. And the number of complaints that we got about turning these things off for a couple of days was really insightful into how important they are for people. So
You
anyway,
can't tell what people are
okay,
using. That's the thing, isn't it? So
yeah. That's just sorry, super tangent, but that in the book *Sapiens*, there's this concept of innovation trap or evolution trap, I think he calls it, which is you kind of come up with a thing to solve a problem. It's so good at solving that particular problem, everybody adopts it, and then you realize that there's all these other problems, but now you can't like undo it because everyone's become dependent on it. And he talks about agriculture and how that made us sort of become we could sit in one place and have homes and things, but that gave us all sorts of musculoskeletal issues because we weren't as active as we were before, but we couldn't undo agriculture. And I do sometimes worry that with AI, we're doing that for this millennium. But anyway, tangent aside. Okay, great. Could we go to the next question?
yeah, of course. Have you used a specialist tool? Yeah.
Yeah. So other than the sort of generic chatbots, Claude, Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, have you used other things that do sort of more specialized things?
No, it's currently winning quite heavily. You're in the right place. Because I
Yeah.
think it can be a bit overwhelming to know where, that whole website, is there an AI for that? Yes, there is. And there's thousands of little icons. So I think there's an
Yeah.
overwhelm of what could do what. So, for you, I know Robin also loves a good AI rabbit hole. We need people like you to go down all the rabbit holes and work out what's worth spending our time on.
Yeah, we're gonna try and do that. But I think what's also interesting is we're seeing more and more things connect to the tools like Claude and so on. And there is a hypothesis that in the future, all you will do is talk to Claude, and Claude will, or whatever your chatbot will then talk to everything else, which makes me nervous, but also excited. But okay, there we go. So yeah, just over 80% sticking to the main chatbots. Great. So we're gonna hopefully stretch a little bit in this session.
And Piers is currently on a course learning how image and video generation works. Oh my gosh, has that evolved so quickly. The videos that are being made right now, the movies that are being made right now, I have very mixed feelings.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's not close to our work, so I haven't entered that at all. But it is a
There's
fascinating
another
thing
rabbit
to
hole, but that's
watch.
for this weekend. Right. Next poll. Those of you who have used other tools, have you paid for them? Even with the LLMs, are you paying? And we did talk about a little bit about that last week, about you can end up with all these different little subscriptions.
I'm definitely
Hence why, the tool that you were so keen to use, now it's paid. It's a
Yeah.
barrier to a lot of people because it's like, well, what actual value is it going to bring to my work, my life? You don't know until you start using it. A bit like the turning off the
Yeah.
functionality. People go, I was using that. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
We've only got
The
one
other
more.
tool.
Oh, go on.
Sorry, just a question in the chat. The other tool was N8N, which I recently I learned is meant to be Nathan. That's like coding
Oh.
speak, I suppose. For the tool is meant to be called Nathan. But I'll show it to you at the end if we have time, just to get a sense. Yes, if your institution pays for it, do include that. I'm just trying to get a sense of who has access to sort of, let's say, paid features as well. Could you explain a bit more about
what other LLM? Yeah, I was reading the same one. I think we were talking about LLMs, but then tools that aren't large language models, which is like the Fireflies, for example, or Gamma, who does presentations, and some of the other tools you're going to talk about. There's quite a lot of tools out there that there's your
Oh, interesting.
accounts.
Okay, so much more on the free accounts. I suppose that's where everyone sort of starts, and then slowly. I'm trying not to figure out what my total spend on AI tools is, because that would probably scare me. But, wonderful. I think we've got one more.
Well, one more poll. Yeah, we just wanted to have a rummage around your brain before we got going. I mean, I think some people are going to ask what vibe coding is. I think there's some very quick no's there. People going, what? Robin's been vibe coding. And again, that's really evolved. But I think for most people, it's like, that just sounds like a thing that sounds hard, or it's coding and I'm not a coder. Where does that sit?
Yeah, although I code things now, and I don't really know coding. I'm sort of
But it's
taken a few
trusting the
courses in
code.
Python.
Again, it's chucking out this code. I don't know coding well enough to be able to check the code. As Anne-Marie saying, her husband's spending all the time doing this. It's another rabbit hole, isn't it? We're just going to.
Yeah.
But again, it's trusting the code. I think there's a level there. You do still need a coder to check the code is correct before you launched a product that you just purely vibe coded. It feels very, very dodgy to me. But
yeah. So I think one of the key disciplines that I'm trying to build across our team is responsible choices of, should I vibe code this thing or should I not do that? So
we have the question. April Louise has asked, what is vibe coding?
Yeah, vibe coding. So one of the co-founders of OpenAI that makes ChatGPT came up with this term, which is where you ask AI to write you code. And the reason it's vibe coding is because you're just sort of going with the vibes. It's not like a very structured, thoughtful, detailed process. It just gives you some code, you have a go with it. If it works, it works. If not, you kind of try again and so on. So yeah, most people not having tried vibe coding, which is, as I would expect, that's probably sort of on the more advanced, definitely on the more advanced sort of side of the spectrum.
And I think Cherry's question is really good because I don't think that we're not talking about handing over our entire workflow to AI. I think we're looking at how AI can complement our workflow. Again, that kind of distinction, Nick, of we're not just giving it all of our work and going for a walk, which would be lovely. We're looking at how it can enhance.
Yeah, well,
complement.
This is one of those key design choices. So what, like, my goal with everything that I set out to do is, can it do everything? And then there's a second question, which is more important: should it do everything? And that question is going to move, right? It's sort of partly values driven. It depends on your role and so on. But I think that is increasingly one of the most important questions when we do stuff, which is why the mapping piece that we're just about to jump into is so important.
She lined you up beautifully there.
Yeah. So let's have a go. I'm going to jump into, so this is a tool called Miro. Miro, not sure how you
I love
pronounce
Miro.
it.
However you pronounce it, it's brilliant.
Miro. Yeah, it's really good. I think there's a free tier that lets you do 10 boards. You can just delete the old ones and do new ones. There's, I think, Microsoft Visio is the Microsoft equivalent, which might be in your system if you already use Microsoft. There's also something called draw.io, which is free, that does the same thing. But basically,
Zoom do whiteboards too. They can't. I think Miro was one of the first, weren't they? I remember Miro very early days. I think they had a real moment in lockdown because we wanted to have these post-it note brainstorming sessions that we were suddenly not able to do. So I think Miro had been around for a while and had a real moment then.
Exactly. Yeah. So I because I was using it before, I just prefer to do all my kind of mapping in here. So I've already mapped this all out. So let me just take you through the thinking. So this is the workflow I thought that we would experiment with today. Hopefully something that resonates with people. The goal is basically to take a journal article and to turn it into some kind of post on LinkedIn where we can share, engage people in our research and so on. So when I sort of thought, okay, how do I do this? What are the kind of steps? It's all right, you digest the journal article, you might then do sort of summary, I want to include this, that, and the other. You might then think about, how do I turn that into content for LinkedIn? These days it's, what are the right emojis that need to go into my LinkedIn post? And then obviously the final step of posting it on LinkedIn. Now, one thing that I think is really interesting is that's how we might think about something. And then there's a flow that's, okay, but how does that work in sort of AI land when we want AI to be doing some of these things for us? So there's actually probably two steps that we add here. So the yellow ones are the original 4 ones, but there's probably 2 here, the orange ones, that are human review, right? So if we give this paper to a chatbot, an LLM, and we tell it to summarize it, it's going to give us some content back. We probably want to check it, make sure that it has kind of got the main points that we wanted it to pull out. And then if so, it can move on to the next step. But if not, we want it to kind of go back and have another go. And then same here again. So once it's drafted the content for LinkedIn, we want to make sure that it sort of makes sense before we go ahead and post it. Otherwise, have another go kind of thing. So I need some water. And then what's interesting, I've just got these down here, which I will attempt to move up, is, oh, that was not at all what I wanted to do. Where are we? Down here. Apologies. Actually, let me just leave it like that rather than attempting to move things. So essentially, these bits, we should all kind of understand how that would happen in a chatbot. You can get it to give you content, check it, iterate it. Obviously, the posting bit, currently, that can't be done by an LLM, right? We cannot just say, please post this on LinkedIn. It has no ability to do that. So how do we solve kind of that problem? Now, as we talked about, these review things are needed because we don't trust what the tool outputs. So down here, I've just got how I think we might be able to tackle that. So often when an LLM, a chatbot, doesn't give you good answers, it's because it's missing some context. So here, this is a relatively simple one. When we want it to summarize a paper, the question is essentially, does it have the right context about how to summarize that? Like, what are the important bits to pull out from a paper? That should be relatively straightforward. Hopefully it does that completely automatically. If not, we might need to give it some guidance on that. Drafting the content is slightly harder. So first of all, one of the things that we often spot in some of this content is like there is now a kind of LLM tone and style that doesn't feel very you. And the first thing that you try to do is okay, but how can I make it more me in terms of the tone and the style and so on? And then the second one is actually what makes a good LinkedIn post. Not all posts get traction and go viral and so on. So is there any context that we can give it in terms of how to make these posts as likely as possible to get engagement and so on? So that's also something that we are going to explore. So this is ultimately what I'm going to try and build. I'm going to pause there. Any questions, thoughts, comments? Let me just switch back to the chat. A draft question, why do we need to summarize the paper for LinkedIn to begin with?
Paul answered that really nicely. It's like we've got a conversation going on in there because Paul's right. Science communication, promoting public understanding, particular result, promoting your research.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's a really good tool for building your community, whatever that might look like. Maybe gaining some users. It could be that your research is relating to a certain sector and they're all on LinkedIn. Love it or hate it, and I think we all have quite mixed relationships with LinkedIn. It's a very good connecting tool, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, wonderful. So let us I'll stop sharing. I'm going to switch to Claude over here and share that instead. Here we go. Okay, so let me come back here. So I am in the project interface in Claude. ChatGPT, so Copilot has projects. Actually, let me just show you what this looks like. Copilot has projects. ChatGPT has custom GPTs, which are kind of like projects. I think they also now have project infrastructure, but essentially it's just a place where you can create a bit of a dedicated space for something. So this is on my personal account because my work account has a bunch of confidential stuff that I can't screen share with. So you can see it's my favorite board game down here. I have a coach that helps me and so on. But this is the one that I've created for our session. So you would just create new project. Very simple. What's the name of the project? What are you trying to achieve? And then it creates this. So this was the name I gave it, academic paper to LinkedIn content creator. And this is the sort of goal. So something that can handle the end-to-end workflow of taking an academic article to summary, to drafted LinkedIn content, to post it to LinkedIn, ideally as much of it as automated as possible. That's all you really need to do. You can see here the chat window, which just works like normal. You chat in here and then it will create one of these threads and you can have sort of follow-up conversations. And so the thing here about this is that it is putting all of these chats within this one project. And why that's particularly useful is because of these things down here. So you can have memory, which is when the chatbot remembers things that you've done. And because this is in a project, this is specific to this project only, which can be quite helpful. It's sort of separate from everything else. You can also give it instructions that will apply to all of the chats that you have in this particular project. And you can also give it files as well, which will be quite helpful. So first thing I try to do is set up this project in a kind of meaningful and intentional way. So actually, I've just realized I'm going to be alt-tabbing a lot. So let me just share my entire screen. So
there's some love for Spirit Island in the chat.
I love it. I love it. My friends got me into this game. I'm completely addicted. I don't think I've played a different board game in the last 2 years. But yeah, those of you who have played it, it's quite complicated. I definitely need the help of an AI to play it well. But anyway, back to this.
There's another question around the thoughts around the standard process and approach to potential difficulties with research that each paper has different variables, different audiences. I mean, this is you might want to create a project per paper because, as you say, unless you're working just under one theme, you would want to have different conversations.
Correct. And I'm so glad that question is here, because this is, again, a bit of that friction that comes in when we try to automate something. It's like, oh, but now I need to tweak it slightly for like a different audience or a different whatever. So how can we just make these things as flexible as possible to all the different, let's say, use cases that we might have? So I hadn't planned to cover that, but we're gonna cover that.
And
so,
is it called agents in Copilot? And in Gemini,
yes.
is it gems in Gemini? They all have silly names for it, I don't know.
They do. I'm not too sure on the naming in Gemini, because
No,
yeah,
I don't use it.
we don't have Google at all at work, so I'm not too sure. But
You might have
okay,
to ask your LLM what it calls the project in
there we go.
itself.
Yeah, when in doubt, ask AI. So I just wanted to show you this. This is a structure, a template that we've created for prompts that we shared with the team. Anthropic, which again, the company that makes Claude, published this paper, I think it was a few months ago, where they looked at, it's called the economic index, I think, or something like that. And one of the stats they had in there is they attempted to correlate the sophistication of prompts with the sophistication of outputs. And they found a 0.92 correlation, which I basically said to the team means it's very important how we structure our prompts, because that determines the quality of output that we get. And so this is the template that we try to use. So goal, what are you trying to achieve? Role, what do you want the AI to do? What role do you want it to have? Context, any background info that might be relevant. Quality is a big one, as we talked about, because they do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So how can we help improve quality with some like quality insurance lines in the prompt? What is the task that we want it to do? Again, broken down as much as possible. And what do we want the output to kind of look like? So, you want an XX summary at the top or graphs at the bottom, like whatever that might look like. And if you have examples of what good is, if you can give it those, that just helps it even more. So what I've done is hang on, I have to move this. I have pre-filled it. I have pre-filled this for our context. So this is what we're trying to do. I want to set up a tool as a Claude project that helps me turn my latest publication into a LinkedIn post designed for maximum engagement, likes, shares, comments, so on. Remember, as much detail as possible helps it. So role, you're an expert LinkedIn content writer and analyst. Context, you might give it some stuff. It's not so important for us, so I just didn't put anything. Quality, I want this to be true to the underlying content, no clickbait type headlines, focus on accuracy and quality, take as long as you need. So LLMs actually make choices about how long they should spend on something. So if you tell it that, it will take longer to kind of think through things. Verify numbers, facts before including them in the output. I've broken down the task based on the workflow that we had. I'm not going to go through it again. And I've also just very basically described the output. So the summary should include the key points from the article. The LinkedIn post should be properly formatted for LinkedIn, emojis, and all. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy that, come back to our Claude project, go into the instructions. Sorry, I'm having to move some of the Zoom things around, which you possibly can't see. But anyway, so here you can see the project instructions. They will work alongside your profile instructions for everything in this project. So I just copy paste that in, and sorry, again, I have to move the Zoom things to press. There we go. So I've saved that. So how that works is that Claude will just add that to every prompt that I give it within this project. So it always has that context in its head. So there we go, part one done. The other thing that I just wanted to show you, which is a useful tip, is whenever you're trying to do something, set up a thread or some space within AI where you can get it to help you troubleshoot. So what I've done here, I just wanted to check that from this thread, it could read the project instructions and other threads in this project. And it said it can. You don't need to sort of read all that. And so what I do is I try to explain a little bit about what I'm doing and how I learn and so on, so it can give me tailored inputs. So I'm relatively new to AI, but I learn quick, especially if you explain the underlying logic of design choices and how things work. Avoid using technical language. Assume I have no baseline information here. Give me detailed step-by-step instructions. If I ever ask about a third-party tool, like Notion, Make, so on, make sure to pull up the most up-to-date information, because these platforms iterate and evolve fast. And it said, got it, I will now do that, and so on. I haven't sort of read all its answer, but it works. I've done it before, so don't worry about that. So yeah, I think this is just a really helpful way of getting unstuck when we do get stuck on specific things. Okay. That's something else. Anyway, we'll come back to that. All right, going back to our project. So, actually, hang on. I had, where was that? I had found an article. Sorry, apologies. Let me go and find it. Here we go. Here we go. There we go. Right. Back to sharing. So I had, for the purposes of this, just found a random article. So this one particularly relevant to what I'm trying to do. So adoption of integration of AI in organization systematic review. So let's pretend this is the article that we want to summarize. So this is my latest article. I want to post, actually, I suspect it might say this is not your article. You shouldn't try to claim this as your own. So I'm just going to say this is a article, I want to post about on LinkedIn. Please give me a summary of it. So this is just the first step. Just to say as well, you often have choices about how your LLMs, your chatbots will do things. One is choosing the model. So for those in Claude, these are the 3 models. This is the most sort of powerful, takes the longest. This is medium, this is the fastest, and so on. I'm going to switch to this one because we probably don't need that heavy lifting, let's say, in Claude. And I think other tools now, you can also set the effort, which is a little bit linked to that sort of timing, how long it takes to do stuff. So
you should always look in the settings.
Choose.
It's a thing you don't. All the settings about the voice and the tone. Question around, is it legal to give commercial AI platform this file? That was a publicly accessible file that you just popped in there. It's something that's already out there in the public domain.
Exactly, correct. And I specifically chose one that was open, so wouldn't get into any issues. I should say one of the reasons that we chose Anthropic for our organization is one of the reasons why the founders left OpenAI, they say, is because they felt that the technology wasn't being developed in an ethical way. And they certainly have a lot of let's say infrastructure at Anthropic to try to do things in a more ethical way. So Claude has lots of internal guardrails. They publish a lot on what does responsible AI look like and safe AI look like and so on. There was this whole thing in the US where they got into trouble with the US government for saying that the US government couldn't use Claude in warfare and so on. So they've at least signaling that they are thinking through these issues.
Before you press play on that one, there's a quick question from Anne-Marie. You just wanted to check, where were you asking those troubleshooting questions? You know, when you were kind of putting all those, where were you at that point? You were in the project memory and conversation there. Cool.
Yeah, so this is, it names it itself, but here, let me change the name, troubleshooting, because the first question I asked was about the memory, it renamed it project memory or whatever. But yeah, so in a project, you can have multiple threads, and I would just recommend you set up, one thread where you will go and you will ask all your help, it doesn't work, how do I fix this type questions. So you can
see, Anne-Marie, there's currently part of a class action against Anthropic by unauthorized use of tens of thousands of academic articles. Oh, I say we're not saying any of them are perfect. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think they settled a couple of those cases. I think I'm not sure on the exact facts, but I think they said that they didn't do anything wrong, and then some emails leaked of the C-suite, I think possibly even the CEO, which was quite damaging, where they had definitely said some things in writing that were bad. But basically, I think they paid out and sort of.
And we talked a little bit last week about the tools you can use that are closed, where you're not sharing, even if it is publicly accessible, you're not sharing it. So again, back to that, making sure you use the right tools in the right way for the confidentiality of the data that you're looking to work with.
Yeah, and I should also add that on training the model, because that's a big problem with this, is that all the data then feeds into the model and they haven't sort of paid for that IP and so on. Anthropic has training off by default, so you have to actively turn it on. I believe every other tool has it default on, unless you ask for it to be turned off. So anyway, I will go ahead and press go on that. So this was the first step in our workflow. Remember, always good to sort of ground back in oh, I really haven't got the hang of this zooming situation, but yeah, always good to ground back in what are we trying to do? Are we still on track? You can evolve this as you go, right? If you feel that you need new steps or new bits of context or whatever, you can always add to it as you go. And obviously, you know, this is quite a simple example. We can probably manage all of that in our heads, but I think it's just a really good discipline to get into, to map it all out, have everything down, have it evolve as you go. Also, when you're working on a collaborative project with others, that is just much more helpful to have that kind of shared source of truth about what's going on. I should actually say, so projects you can share, and you can do this with sort of custom chatbots in ChatGPT and so on. So it's another way to sort of work collaboratively. Okay, so it's done a review of this. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to mute. We've got the information up here about title and so on, just a bit of methodology, and then some of the findings around the summary. So interesting. I asked it this question this morning, came up with different things. So interesting, the probabilistic nature of them. But anyway, it's saying, I should say it was just the structure that was different, not necessarily that some of the numbers or whatever were different. So, okay, most used AI techniques. So we've got machine learning, natural language processing, deep learning, interesting. I'm not sure how exactly it's categorizing those, but anyway, this is more the stuff that I was hoping to pull out. So where AI is being applied. So in HR, in marketing, ops and finance, and main enablers and some challenges. So leadership, organizational support, good, makes sense. AI skilled workforce, again, makes sense. Financial technological resources, favorable regulation and policy. Although that must surely be, regulation must be at the national level, not the organizational level, but anyway, the policy bit, yeah, makes sense, internal policies of the organization and so on. Three main challenges: resistance to change, lack of skills, data quantity, quality, and privacy. All sounds good. I had a quick flick through the article this morning. I think that's broadly right. So, you know, at this point, you might check whether it had done that and ask it to iterate if it hadn't, and so on. But actually, a really great, simple question that you can always ask to check it is just why. So why? Oh, not typing. Got to move the Zoom thing. Why did you give me? Oh, give me the 4 enablers and 3 challenges. What was this based on? And yeah, that's always helpful to try to understand in more detail. So there it's telling you the authors explicitly identify 4 enablers and 3 challenges through the thematic analysis of 196 articles. In section 4.2.2, paper presents them under the heading blah, blah, blah. And you can even say, what page is section 4.2? Not necessarily that you would do this, but just to show that it can actually give you the pages, and sometimes you could, yeah, so there it's giving you verbatim text, so you could sort of take this and just go back to our article, copy, Control F, and you can see here that this was in the methodology, and this is also the section that it refers to, right? So just an easy way to be able to sense check that the information it's giving you is actually correct. And you can see there's leadership there, sort of AI skilled workforce down there, and so on. Okay, so it is, oops, I'm jumping ahead, that's NA10. It's pulled out the correct information. So we're okay on that sort of step. So we're going to move through to the next one, which is around turning this into a LinkedIn post. So turn this in this summary, rather use this summary to create a LinkedIn post optimized for engagement. Okay, so let's press go on that and see what it comes up with. Okay, so this is what it's come up with. Are we asking the right questions? After reviewing nearly 13,000 academic papers, analyzing 196 studies, systematic literature, it has attributed that to me. Okay, great. Our new systematic literature review maps what we know about organizations, how they're adopting AI. Here's the evidence it shows. Biggest barriers, those things. organizations getting this right, those 4 things. On the technology side, those are the main uses. Here's what the literature is missing. So really curious, what do people think? Do we think this is good? Do we think this is bad? Would you copy paste this and post it straight into LinkedIn? Why not? And so on.
It's very dry. I don't see any personality in this. I hate the little emojis. It feels like it's been written in AI. I don't see what richness you're adding to the conversation in this post currently, which is exactly what AI will chuck out immediately, isn't it? Because we haven't told it any voice, we haven't told it why we want to talk about this, or what if there's any call to action. We haven't told it why we're interested in the article. So for me, if I saw this posted, I'd move on.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think we've all got good AI radar, haven't we? We've all seen terrible copy.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat. Question just popped up on why to do this as a project rather than a distinct chat. So that's going to go to the scalability question, which we're going to come back to. So within a chat, you have a certain amount of, let's say, memory or context that the chat can hold. And over time, you see degradations in output because there's just too much information in it. It's a bit like humans who give us too much information, we get overwhelmed and can't sort of process it all. But in a project structure, you can just create a new thread for the next article that you're going to do this for, and so on. And all the instructions and setup will be there. When we start connecting to other tools, you'll see a little bit why that's valuable in there too. All right, let me get it to check its own homework. Yeah, honest audit. So there's another great way, right, that you can just make sure that it's sort of doing things properly. You can ask it to audit itself. So opening line, this is what it chose. The rationale, questions drive engagement on LinkedIn. Okay. I assume you wanted to hook that lead with the topic rather than with your own credibility or identity. I mean, I never said that. I wanted it to be about my identity. But anyway, after reviewing nearly 13,000 academic papers, choice leading with the scale of the methodology early, rationale, this establishes credibility and signals rigor. Okay, fine. So you can see that it's made a bunch of these sort of choices and you can interrogate them and figure out whether you like them or not. But I think what is a useful thing to do is bring in some expertise here. So do a thorough review of information on the web about what makes a good LinkedIn post. Give me your sources so I can check. Focus on quality and accuracy. So I'm also going to get it to do a bit more heavy lifting. Oops. So go back to our, wait, why can I not? Oh, interesting. They've changed. Will it let me do this? Oh, okay. I can do that.
This is the other thing we were saying before we went live about how every time you go into one of these tools, they've tweaked it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. We're constantly being tested on, so we keep moving things and toggling things. Anyway, so I'm basically getting it to do a bit more heavy thinking as it does this. As it's doing that, because that's probably going to take a bit of time. By the way, whenever you use one of these heavier models, you can actually click in and see how it's thinking about the task, which is another way to check and validate that it is actually doing a proper process. So you can see now it's reading all these things and so on. So yeah, you just get that by clicking that, although now it doesn't seem to want to minimize. But anyway, the other challenge is this thing of how do I make it sound like me? So I'm just going to go back to the project layer. What you'll see is this thread here, which I was just running before we got started. So my first prompt to it was scan the internet for all of my blogs, articles, everything I've ever written, and I gave it some of the sources where this exists. If you have all of that stuff kind of in a folder on your desktop, even better, that's sort of organized. I do not, so I had to get it to go out and trawl the web to find some stuff. So it found some of the things you can see here. I found this, I found that. Some of the things it didn't find, so I gave it some help somewhere. I uploaded one of the documents and I gave it a link to one of the blogs, the blog repositories rather, that it couldn't find on Substack. So yeah, it's now got a bunch of things. And what I can do is I can say, you are an expert linguist and content analyst. I want you to analyze my writing style so that we can create posts that sound like me, do a thorough analysis, and then give me different rules I can give to an LLM to sound like me. These will live in a database in Notion, so format them appropriately, but I want to see them here before they end up in Notion. So this is when I more or less jumped on the call, so I haven't seen what it's output. but it has pulled a bunch of things. Okay, you think like a researcher and write like a consultant. Okay, almost everything you publish runs on the same engine. You open with a proposition the reader already half believes. Any successful founding team will know that talent is key. Introduce a tension or a counterfact, then resolve it into practical evidence-based takeaway. I did not realize that's how I write, but that is actually pretty spot on now that I think about it. So there we go. You pull the reader through with questions. Section headers are often questions, and the next question is how you do that. All right, and then this is an example. The next question is how you do that well, is a recurring bridge. Also didn't realize that, but also probably true. There we go, learning about ourselves.
I've got a question about, is it tokens? How does this work with that? Is it just you have a subscription, there's a certain amount you can do free? I've never used Claude.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to ChatGPT and others. I believe they have a free account, I want to say. I'm pretty sure they have a free account. Obviously, the functionalities, you might not, for example, have access to the Opus 4.8, which is the most powerful model, or it might be sort of capped and so on. But yeah, it works like Claude and, like Copilot and ChatGPT. Oh no, I can't. Okay. Yeah, so you can just go to settings and usage. You can see how much you've used. I'm on a max plan, which is quite a lot. So yeah, it's used very, very little, but yeah. And then it resets every 5 hours. So you get that back. Okay. So anyway, we would read all of these and we would say whether these are good or bad rules and whether we want it to use them for us or what. Sorry, I just saw this line. That's the PhD showing through the blog voice. Don't know what that means, but great. Anyway,
let's say it's got all these... don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Let's say it's got all these rules. So now I want to start like connecting other things and trying to scale this up, let's say. So this is Notion. If you haven't used Notion, just imagine it as a place where you can literally create, where you can put any kind of content. So you tap / and then there's all these different things that you can do with it. So these are some of the suggested ones. You can do an AI image, you can create a page, you can create a list, you can get transcription, all these sort of headers and so on, all these different sources of media, image. It's an incredibly versatile tool. So I just use it as like my AI sort of side working place, if you like. So I have previously connected Notion to Claude. We're going to connect another tool live, so I'll show you how that bit works, but just assume that it's connected in the background. So I can say, okay, great, approve of all of these rules. I want to save these in a database in Notion. I've created a page called aspect session. Aspect session, create a database there with each of these rules as a row. And oh wow, it had actually put them in a table. How nice of it. So I'll just switch here. Hopefully it will now go and do this magically. And so while it's doing that, I will just explain a little bit what's going on here. So there's something called MCP, Model Context Protocol. I think, God, it's been a while since I said the acronym out loud. Anyway, MCP, you can Google it, it's sort of a standard thing. It's essentially a protocol for how AI tools can talk to other tools. So yeah, here you can see it's recognized that we want Notion, and it's now taking actions in Notion. So right, it found the database, and it is now gonna, there we go. So it's created this database, so I can click into it. There's the database, it's created these columns, and it will start populating them one by one. So MCP is how you connect your AI tool to other tools. And this is a relatively new thing, I think maybe a year and a half max kind of thing. And so more and more people are creating MCP servers for your AI tools to plug into. Now, I should say there are risks of connecting MCPs to your chatbots. These will probably be controlled by admins, so you might have to talk to admins about that. I am showing you this on my personal accounts because, for example, we are not at work allowed to connect Notion to Claude, but we are working on getting it approved. And the reason for that is it just sort of opens the door for the LLM, the chatbot, to walk into whatever other software you might be using. So For example, at work, we have lots of valuable information in Notion, and we are trying to figure out how to set the right controls so that Claude can't just come in and sort of change stuff and delete stuff that we might not want it to, right? So it's just some guardrails around that. Aha, okay, so this is actually one of the guardrails. I was wondering why it wasn't populating. So I have set in my settings that whenever it does, let's say, high-risk actions, which you can determine, that it should ask me before it goes ahead and does that. And so you can see here, I have the choice of always allow you to create these pages in Notion, or ask me, and I will just say allow once so that the next time it will ask me. And there we go. It has added all the rules into the database, and it's sort of tagged them, which we didn't ask it to do, but anyway, that's great. So also, if you're getting a huge amount of information in a tool like Claude or Copilot or whatever, and it's sometimes quite difficult to edit specific bits or whatever, or to read specific bits, you can then pull that into a format that you prefer in Notion or whatever other tool you want to use. And then you can always tell your Claude to go back and read this page. So it's a slightly easier way of managing information. So there we go. It's added that in there. And what I can now do is I can, so we go back to the project, and I will just pause after this last thing to just see if there's any questions and so on. What am I looking for? Instructions. So I can now add to my instructions in context where we said we didn't give it anything before. You can find my tone/style guidelines in a connected Notion page called, what do we call it? Aspect session. Aspect session. It's in the writing style rules database. Okay, so now it knows that it can go and look at that whenever it needs to understand my tone and my style and so on. By the way, if you're doing any other project or any other conversation in Claude, and you tell it, go and look at that same resource, it can do that, right? So what we've done now is we've created a persistent memory of something that determines quality for us. So now whenever we want Claude to produce content that sounds like us, we can do that much more easily. So what that hopefully does is it reduces the amount of iterations that we have to do in this bit because things don't sound like us. So this is like we're taking a step closer to being able to fully hand over to Claude to do that part of the process because we trust that it can produce things that sound like us and so on. Cool. Appreciate that was probably quite a bit of information, some new things. I'll pause there, give people a chance to put some questions in. I'll just have a flick through to see if there's new stuff. Sure, some people have to drop off. Yeah, we can share. I think I saw something about prompts. Not sure if that was further up. We can absolutely share the prompts. I demoed the usage thing. I think it's the same on the free account. You basically go to settings.
Apparently in the free account, you can ask the free account how much you've used because the settings usage button isn't there unless you're paying for it. But I did Google that after somebody asked because I cheated because I don't use it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, why would they not make that available to us? Anyway, so why can't you save this inside Claude to pull out whenever you want Claude to generate something for you in your voice? So absolutely, right? So you do have the option in the settings. I'll just show you again. Where is it? Oh, here, right? Instructions for Claude. You can, you could have just put all those rules in here. The way that this works, though, is
that's across everything, isn't it? So it'll be across everything in your account. Yeah.
Exactly. Everything in your account will be here. If you do it at the project level, every query that you put in the project, it will take that and put it through. But what you want is a more specific thing that says, when you need to look at my tone of voice, go and read that thing over there. And so we've created that ability. It's also, as I said, sometimes much easier to edit things here. I mean, imagine if this was 200 rows or whatever, right? Suddenly that's a lot in Claude. The interface is sometimes quite clunky and so on. Like you could have, so I think for one of the projects that we've set up at work, we probably have 15 or so Notion pages that it is pulling different pieces of information at different times. That would absolutely overwhelm Claude. There's no sort of clean way to do that in its memory structure. So you'd see like degradation of quality if you started to query things with that. So yeah. Okay, a couple of questions and then some clarifying. The access rules for the drawdown for the MCPs is in admin settings. Does the writing rules that you created in one project right around cross project? Not by default on the sharing with other projects. So I would have to set up a new project and then tell it. By the way, you can go and find this in Claude, in Notion. So pull that if you need it. Let me just go back here and show you MCPs. They keep changing things. Is it in here now? Connect move to customize was. Also, how classic. Connect move to customize, but there's no customize here. So you could only get to it by clicking connectors. Anyway, so this is where I've got the connectors. So I did want to show you this towards the end, but I can just show you now. So these are all the connectors that are available, and they keep adding more and more and more. So many, and you can search as well, and it will find loads of different things. So in Notion, I can come here, and these are the permissions that I have available to me. So read-only tools means that Claude can only read from Notion. It can't change anything in Notion. So I have these default as always allow. So it will do this without asking me. Write, delete tools. So this is about editing, creating new things, deleting things. For some things, I've said it can always do it. For other things, I've said you need to stop and ask me. That's the middle one. You could also change it to you're never allowed to do this, which is that one there. So yeah, you have some level of control. When a lot of these MCPs came out, you had no level of control. It was either all on or all off. Anthropic sensibly realized that they need to give admins some controls over these things. And so they started doing this, and they are getting better and better over time, which is great. So yeah, not a huge amount of control, but you have some and increasing. And again, just to re-emphasize, when you connect your agent to an MCP server, you've opened the front door. The agent can do all sorts of things in there. So there are risks with that. You want to think through that carefully. Definitely kind of talk to someone who understands how these things work before you do that. If this is in an enterprise setting, I'm sure that it will not sort of default let you do that. You will have to speak to your admins about that. So go ahead and do that. Okay, and again, I think that's it. So I will crack on, just slightly conscious of time. And I want to get to the sort of final bit. So, but I've lost track of what we were doing. What were we doing? It's created the stuff in Notion, which is great. Okay, so now, was this in the, oh, this was the thread where we were creating the guidelines. Where was the original? This one, okay. So this is where we started the original summary. Okay, so I can come down here and I can say, oh, we asked it to go and find those best practice principles of how to draft LinkedIn posts. So let's say we checked that and we've done that. And by the way, you can do exactly the same. So you can get it to save that in a database in Notion rather than trying to save it in a Claude memory. So you could have two databases and you could say, yes, redraft. But also, I have connected this project to Notion, and there are rules in there about my tone and style. Use those to do the redraft. Okay, let's see. Sometimes, and this is very hit and miss, which is why I feel like I'm being experimented on. Sometimes it cannot go and pull in new tools that it didn't have access to mid-conversation. So I would have to start a new thread and say, go and read that old thread, figure out where we were, and then also go and pull the stuff from Notion. You can see here that it's obviously pulling the things from Notion, so it can access them. And I'm curious to see what it pulls out, and whether questions and so on will show up. While it's doing that, again, sorry, just slightly conscious of time, so going to be a bit rushed towards the end. I'm trying to think. Okay, I'll just show you N8N very quickly. So this again is a paid tool. Unfortunately, they've removed the free tier, but oh God, how do I? Yeah, there we go. The concept is that you can essentially build out in Miro, a bit like that flow diagram, all the steps that you would want. So the first step always has to be some sort of trigger. So something happens in an app, or we can trigger it manually. I'm just going to choose this for simplicity's sake. And you can see here that you can add different steps in the journey as the workflow evolves. So this is actions in an app. They have the most insane collection of apps, right? So I'm just going to start scrolling down, and you can see we're only at C, right? So just a huge number of tools And then when you click into a tool, it has sort of sub options, right? So, okay, there's only, oh, it's because it thinks it's a trigger. Apologies. Let me come here, action in app. So yeah, you can, I mean, so many, oh, there's even more tools, but yeah, you can then click through and it will have all the different actions that you could possibly do. So there's 13 here in this app. I don't really know what this app is, but you can just imagine that you can just build nodes after nodes. So this is AI agent, AI steps. So didn't mean to configure it. So you can see it's added an AI agent. Then let's say we wanted it to do something in, is there words? Or is it sort of Office or something? Anyway, let's do, yeah, Google tends to have.
And we're in N8N right now, aren't we? Like, people are asking in the
Yes.
chat, where are we playing right now? And it does look like Miro. It's got that kind of drag and drop, but it isn't
Yeah,
Miro. This is
exactly.
N8N.
Exactly. Apologies. I just wanted to very quickly show, and you can see you can drag things. It is very much like Miro, and you can build out the workflow. So this, you can do really, really complex things. And it's good because it kind of scales with your level of
So
complexity.
how have you used this? Where did you start using this tool? Because I can feel, it feels that there's so many apps you can connect. It feels a bit overwhelming. Is it, where would you start? Like, give me
Yeah,
the
it is.
101 of this feels intriguing. What's a quick win?
Yeah, so I started with things that I was kind of doing a bit manually in Claude. So I was having to tell it, step 1, do this, step 2, do this. And then I was like, oh, I wonder if I can just automate this in N8N. So very, very simple things that I built. What was probably the first thing? For example, I was getting stuff, let's say, from a Google Sheets. So for every row in Google Sheet, take the content in that row, give it to an AI thing, and write back the answer from the AI thing back into the Google Sheet. Right, so that was 3-4 step process. I remember doing quite a few of those at the beginning. For example, we were trying to figure out which organizations might be good for us to partner with. So I pulled from our CRM a list of sort of organizations that we didn't have particularly good connections to or understand really what they did, and I did that. So I got it to take each organization name, go to the LLM, do a research on how similar is this organization to us in terms of mission, vision, values, and so on, and then save that back into the spreadsheet. So that's sort of called enrichment. So it's really good for those sorts of things, but also really good for loads and loads of things. So yes, not going to talk too much about N8N. Didn't mean to be a sort of thorough part of this session, but I just wanted to show you, some of the tools that are out
It's a
there.
different way of structuring the connection, isn't it? Because it's showing you the workflow, it's showing you the logic
Exactly.
all on one page, rather than, the
Exactly.
connections from Claude to Notion. This is a lovely visual. I'm a very visual thinker, so I like the
Yes.
logic of what is each
Yeah.
piece doing, why is it there, and they say how they connect back into each other. But that's definitely, I think it sounds like you need to have that challenge to solve that plugs different pieces together. Then you can start playing with
Exactly.
that. Cool.
Exactly. Which is, I mean, it's the default tool. I mean, a lot of people default to this for sort of AI automation and stuff, which is why I wanted to show it, which is why I was so annoyed that they've taken away the free tier. But anyway, and I should say there's like a little AI thing here that you can talk to, and it sort of edits your workflow. So even like when you click into this, it looks quite intimidating. There's a bunch of options.
That's where I was coming from. It's like, this is obviously really cool, but I don't know where to start.
Exactly. But you can ask the AI thing and it will do it for you. You can also take
Cool.
screenshots of this and ask Claude how to do it. And so yeah, there's ways around it. There's also, this platform in particular has a huge community. There's so many community resources, so many YouTube videos and so on, like step-by-step walkthroughs. So anyway, great.
It sounds
Jumping
like if
back.
your workflow involves multiple solutions, it's a great tool to just plug them together. Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
Exactly.
I told you I'd be
right.
here with the stupid questions. That's basically my job, because it's like, I'm intrigued by this, but I feel I don't know where to start. So find a workflow that involves multiple components and have a play.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly. Okay, let's come back to this. So it's read 21 rules in the writing style rules database. Here's the redraft. Okay, interesting thing. I think that it used the LinkedIn rules that we generated above. Anyway, I wasn't specific in my instructions. That's on me. We would probably have to ask it to incorporate those. But how's it done? So most leaders treat AI adoption as a technology problem. The evidence suggests otherwise. Our new systematic review, blah, 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 13,000 records, finds that the binding constraint on AI adoption tends to sit elsewhere. Oh, so this is that thing that it said that I sort of prevent a half truth, but then like sort of trying to spin the story. So I'm saying evidence, people think it's this, but then the evidence suggests it's that, which is a little bit how I tend to write those things. It's also done the bridging question thing. So where exactly, and then go on to explain. It's doing the heading thing that it pulled out as a rule. More questions. I'm now going to be really conscious when I write. Oh my God. So where does that leave us? I don't know if I used that many questions, but anyway, you can see that it's really tried to sort of change the style, right? To match me. I'm also just curious how it ended the previous one. Where was the draft? Where was the draft? Wait, where did I pass it? Oh no, here, yeah. Yeah, so not really a signal for engagement, right? So this is sort of summary papers here, co-authored with there some hashtags. Whereas what I tried to do with the advice of our marketing team at work is to try and end with a hook. Like almost a call to action. So that's why over here it's sort of, if you're working through any of these, I'd love to hear how. It's sort of giving people a platform, an opportunity to engage with you and to sort of drive some of that. So it's also pulled that in as well. So I mean, that's great, right? So I would have now more confidence that I could fully give this to Claude. I mean, obviously you'd iterate and you'd try different examples and so on, but I can see a world where now I can get it to behave more like me than just sort of very flat thing that we got originally. Okay. So I do want to jump to the last thing, which is going to need our troubleshooter. So remember in our workflow, the last bit, so let's say we're super happy with the drafted content. Now we want to somehow try to get it on LinkedIn in an automated way, right? So I've come back to my troubleshooter and I'm saying, I've got the content in a good place on Claude. I now want to post on LinkedIn in an automated way. Can we use make.com MCP to do this? So yeah, I had a quick play around how to do this before. I've never, from here onwards, I've never done any of this, right? So you are seeing live somebody trying to solve a problem.
I've never heard of make.com, and I like the bravery. Let's do this.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. So I'm going to ask Claude how to help me set this up. I have no idea how to do this, right? So
Cool.
yeah, this is a bit like the raw insight into sometimes how to do things. So let me check. So we've got it on the I thing, which is why it's doing a lot of this thinking and saying, let me check this, let me check that, which is probably good. When you're asking technical questions, you probably want to get it to think a bit longer. So it might take a bit of time, but let me just show you as well. So make.com. Actually, the landing page is sort of quite similar to, what do you call it? NA10 is a sort of drag and drop thing. And there is a free thing here, which I created yesterday. So yeah, it's logged me in. You can see you get 1,000 credits for free and so on. So it's thinking, but I suspect I did basically what I did is I went to make, I don't know what all these words mean, but somewhere it was, there's a weird term for it. Oh, scenarios. I don't know why it's called a scenario, but it's called a scenario. So I came here and I basically tried to find post on LinkedIn. So this is the sort of node where you click and you add things a bit like NA10. I put LinkedIn here and you can see it found it. And there was create a user text post. So shares a simple text article or URL on a user's wall. I assume that's the action that we want to trigger. But that's why so Claude has some clarifying questions. How hands-off do you actually want the LinkedIn step to be? Great question. Claude drafts, I approve, then it posts. Fully hands-off, Claude posts with no review. I'm happy to copy paste, find post. Let's do that. Where are you posting? My personal LinkedIn page. So yeah, as I said at the beginning, just sort of a design philosophy for me is I always try to push what I'm building to the maximum level of automation because I want to understand what's possible. And then I ask that secondary question of like, hang on a minute, should I actually do this? So I would definitely not let Claude be able to post to my LinkedIn without me checking, but I've just told it that to, again, see how far we can go. So yeah, oh, interesting. LinkedIn restricts automation warning, has an important exception. Okay, let's see what it comes up with. But yeah, I'm essentially saying, I'm essentially thinking it will say, if you can create this thing in make.com, and you can connect that to Claude to say, take the information from Claude, then trigger this action in make.com. That action will then post it on a LinkedIn page. So that is what I am hoping that it tells us. And we have 10 minutes, so I hope that it tells us that soon. But yeah, in the meantime, if there's any other questions, yeah, let me know. I'm coming back into the chat. Oh yeah, apologies, was through the thing. Yeah, so this one is Miro, where we flashed out the drawing. The other one that we were actually kind of adding the AI elements in was NA10. I think we sort of clarified that, but just in case. And this new one is make.com. It came up with something. What did it come up with? It is achievable, but the simple version of your plan is the fiddly path, not the clean one. Okay, requires LinkedIn to grant a specific permission called something, which is part of an API. Make does not have an official make maintained LinkedIn module. Okay. All right, so it's saying to me you can't do it. I'm not going to sit here and read. I obviously would if I was doing this. What I am instead going to do though is, oh, I've just realized I need to move the Zoom thing. So what I am instead going to do is take a screenshot of this, just to again show you the troubleshooting sort of steps, and just literally paste this in and say, why can't I connect Claude to this action here in make.com? And let's see what it comes up with. Sorry, I see the chat. Existential question. I love those. If everyone does this, what will we end up having in the LinkedIn feed? So this is a great question. And there's a guy called Ethan Mollick. I think he's a professor at, I want to say Wharton. And he writes a lot on stuff. And he had this post a couple of weeks ago where he said, does anyone else feel like LinkedIn has just turned into Claude? Because everyone is using Claude to draft their LinkedIn posts. And it's a good point. It is becoming increasingly kind of, you can see the consolidation to a single style and things, which is why
that's why we were
I've
so
added,
cynical about your first post, wasn't it? Yeah, your first post was so obviously not you.
Yeah, which is why I've added this sort of tone thing into it. But yeah, good news first, then the explanation. I love this. The screenshot actually clears something up. The module you're looking at, created, shares a simple text article or URL on the wall, is exactly the right one. Okay. And it makes own verified whatever. So the building block you need does exist. Let me confirm the current setup. Okay, sounds good. We are moving towards our goal. But yes, everything. So I work in investment, and often you make investments because you see things that other people can't see. That is how you create, let's say, differentiated returns over anyone else. And there's this question of like, now everyone is using AI to analyze different investment options. And are we all just going to end up investing in the same three things? One of which is going to be the LLM provider that you're using to come up with the stuff. So yeah, not so sure where that one ends up, but definitely something to be alive to. Okay. It's now, we've got a problem. That screenshot explains the confusion perfectly. But one layer too deep, why this specific screen won't connect to Claude? The menu where you pick individual building blocks, create a user text post is one block. Think of it like a single ingredient on a kitchen shelf. Don't know what that means. The Claude to make plug doesn't reach individual ingredients. Oh, it's taken this analogy way too far. I don't understand.
It really has, hasn't it? I was thinking it only reached, it's gone off down a little rabbit hole of its own now, hasn't it? Just tell me straight how it works, please. Come on.
You know what the problem is? In my instructions for the troubleshooting, where I said, assume I don't understand anything technical.
It's taking you to cooking.
Yeah. It's like, also because I do ask Claude for recipes, it probably thinks the way to explain this to Nick is through a cooking analogy.
His mind works with food. Yeah. It's fair. I understand.
It's gone definitely off. What I think is happening, by the way, is it's saying that either I build the whole thing in make.com, which is all the steps that we just talked about. So I give it the article, then I give it the instructions to summarize, then I give it the instructions to create my tone of voice and so on, all in make.com. And then the final step in that action can be this thing that we're looking at here, the create a user post. What I think it's saying is you can't do half of it in Claude and then just pass something magically to make in order for it to then execute as part of the rest of a workflow. So I think that's where the issue has has shown up. So yeah, it looks like that final bit we probably won't be able to do. But just for the sake of it, I'm now a little bit curious because there is a make.com MCP, which I found yesterday. So I'm now kind of curious, like what this MCP actually is for then, if not for passing information halfway through a workflow. So go to make.com, and I'll just show you this so you get a sense of what it looks like to connect. So run make scenarios and manage your make account. Oh, I see. It's to get it to actually make the scenarios rather than to execute scenarios. Okay. So I'm going to click connect. And you can see here that it wants you to authenticate. So this is the thing where I said that your admin will prevent you from being able to do this step, most probably. Okay, so here we have the permissions. So do I want it to run my scenarios? So to trigger scenarios, basically. Let's say yes. You modify your scenarios. Let's say yes. We're giving it access to, okay, I'm going to delete this connection after this just to make sure it doesn't go completely rogue, but hopefully you're all set. Okay, so that it's as simple as that. It's now here, we can see it. We can also see the permissions should all be asked by default. Yes, they will ask. Wow, that is a lot of control. Great that they have done that. Just want to come back to our project. Where are we? Projects. Our LinkedIn creator thing to here. I have connected a make.com MCP. Can you create this workflow that we've done here in make.com? Use any information from other threads in this project that you might need. I suspect this is going to take longer than the remaining 3 minutes that we have left. So what I will do is I will let it run and I will let Lucy know how it's gone.
We're encouraging exploration, aren't we? I think the key purpose of this session was all about this interconnectivity and thinking about how you use the different tools, potentially, as I do right now, in a siloed way. You know, I might be running something in chat and then cutting and pasting it into Gamma, and then, you know, in Firefly, you know, I've got the solutions I'm using right now, but they're definitely not in a stack. They're all siloed. So there's a lot of inefficiency there. So for those of you who are using those tools, how could they connect? We now know they could. I didn't, you know, the connectivity and what they could do for you to make, you know, a richer suite of solutions.
Yeah, and Christina, to your point, so absolutely right. This, like what we've just demoed here, we spent an hour and a half doing something. It probably would have taken us 10 minutes, 15 minutes to write the post. I guess the question that I would put out is when you need to change, when you want to create one post with 20 different audiences with different styles, your sort of more academic style and your more kind of LinkedIn engagement style and so on. Or if you want to then have agents doing this for you and so on, like at some point, it doesn't become scalable to just do all the posts, right? So, and this was just a very simple example. So I can maybe show you.
It was a way to demonstrate how these tools will talk to each other, wasn't it? The LinkedIn scenario is just a scenario. You could be applying this to your project management, to your, however whatever you're using these tools for.
This appears to be my personal. Oh no, it's not. Here we go. Okay, so this is a tool that we use at work. I'm just going to whiz through it very, very quickly. Actually, I'm not. But basically, what it does is when people come to us and say, "Hey, can you invest in our fund?" This does the first pass of all of their information on a website, in the email, in any information that they've attached to the email, and so on, and pulls that into a structured form for us to be able to see all of that information in a standardized way, the way that we tend to process it. And it also comes up with a recommendation of what we should do. Should we progress it in our pipeline or not, and why? And we have the humans to check that. So this used to take roughly 2 hours per hey, can you invest in me request that we got. It now takes 20 minutes. And that 20 minutes is just the human checking that the logic is correct and so on. So yes, absolutely. For drafting a post, you probably don't want to do this whole process. For something like this, you probably do. We get around 120 of those every year. So 120 times a couple hours saved begins to add up, right? That's for each person doing this. So yeah, hopefully you get a sense of the scale that you can take this to, and hopefully that's valuable. Oh, it's asking me more questions. Anyway,
we shall leave that one to run. Thank you very much, Nick.
And I will let you know.
And thank you very much to everyone who dialed in for the second session. And hopefully I'll see lots of you on Thursday for the next one. Let everyone go and have their lunches now, which is generally how we're all feeling at the end. Thank you very much.
Take care.